Finishing our patrols of the Cellars sector, we stop by the ARGELIUS arm, described as a long curve of star systems, a stellar cluster between the Alpha and Beta quadrants. Its robust pink hue is created from the nebula and numerous newly formed stars, and it's a site of colonial attempts from the Federation. Moving on now, we cross into the ARGELIUS sector, the neighbouring system to Sector 001, and make for the first stop along the patrol, the Pelme system. Pelme 2 is an M-class world with a notably large moon and 47,000 colonists. The northern continent is a hodgepodge of fault lines and constant tectonic activity, probably from the large moon's influence. Despite this, the seismic stabilizers have been deployed to protect the colony, and we're here to investigate alarms from these stabilizers upon entering the system. And Temet notes that these readings seem odd. As we get closer, sailing towards this red world, we get clearer readings, extreme seismological activity that warrants a full evacuation. But Temet points out that such levels are inconsistent with past readings. After all, we did put a colony here, and that was not going to happen on an unstable world. So she suggests we go inspect the sensors themselves. Beaming down, we're greeted with a dust storm over a sparse landscape of wind-carved rocks and domed long-leaved trees, and aside from the bluster it seems, well, notably calm. Where are these tremors? We beam down near a cluster of these sensors, so approach one, its monolithic metal surfaces at odds with the surrounding erosion, and check it out. Our engineer, Skavrin, immediately finds sabotage within the system, isolinear chips that have been changed around and damaged in a way to create false readings. This issue is easily remedied, but still now we have a follow-up investigation to do. Traversing through the blasted landscape, we find 4 more towers that need repair, and on completing the duty, Temet confirms that they are now working and that the alarms have ceased. Evacuation is no longer on the table for the colonists. Also, it looks like the saboteur was in with the civilian populace, and while we have been doing these repairs, taking our time, the culprit was arrested as a Klingon agent. This could be from the Klingon-Federation War, or just unsettled elements from House Mokai, depending on when you do this mission. Such an evacuation would have created an opening in the Federation's territory, as ships were redirected to aid in the effort. Man, some people cannot accept that there's no longer a war on. We beam up and resume our patrol. We pass by Tostig, which shows signs of former Takon occupation, definitely of interest to the Federation, and we pass ARGELIUS too. ARGELIUS is a non-Federation world that nonetheless enjoys good relations with the UFP, allowing the use of its space, ports and planet-side shore leave. Nothing of trouble here, and no time to take a break, so we move on to Zlin. Zlin has 6 planets in the system, or rather, had. In 2315, the main star of the trinary system supernovaed. Nothing untoward, but the Federation and other powers have established mining facilities in the debris to get at the uranium, topaline and tricyanite. Passing through the system, we receive a call from Captain Sulu, not that one, who alerts us to a Nausicaan presence and the disappearance of our last mining vessels to enter the system, the USS Welch. The two are related. What's more, the last transmission revealed that the Nausicaans are in the middle of setting up turrets and weapons platforms, so we're to remove them with prejudice. The large platforms lurk into view amidst the debris and green dust, and we discover them to be Chronoton torpedo launchers. Not exactly the most stable of payloads, and definitely in violation of a couple of Federation laws. Interestingly enough, however, approaching these platforms from the underside shows that they cannot target us. Apparently they are incomplete, or at least poorly designed. Either way, they need to go. Our efforts, however, alert the remaining Nausicaan ships, who begin to defend their encampments. So now we have a battle on our hands, but their few ships are no match for the Armiger. After taking out several ships, and all of the turret placements, we leave a single Talon battleship to report back, leaving somebody to tell the tale. Captain Sulu calls in to confirm that there are no more turrets, and that we are now free to depart, another UFP asset secured. Our next point of call is Ruben Prime. This planet is one of 3 in the system and is in the middle of attempting to elevate its status by bringing in more colonists into its unpopulated western reach. Swinging by this system, Captain Sulu forwards us a distress signal from a science team in the system. Gorn have attacked, and they are deploying a minefield around the freighter routes and around the science outposts themselves. This attack is fresh, and Sulu informs us that this was a tactic that the Gorn have deployed before. Smaller ships enter and create a hazardous zone to buy time for larger assault forces to then move in. The surrounded outposts are still evacuating, so we need to cut a path for them. The freighters will mark their locations for us, and although we can engage the Gorn, our priority is the evacuation of our people. Gorn within the Klingon Empire are pretty well kept in check, but there are still those who act outside of their hegemony. Here we have 5 smaller Vishat frigates and several Tuatara cruisers protecting their minefield. This mission goes by rather quickly as our arrival proves a big enough distraction for the Gorn, and the freighters manage to evacuate. However, there are still colonists on the world below, and we remain in system to take out the rest of the Gorn forces before we depart ourselves. For now, the system ends up being safe, but there might still be that second wave incoming. Either way, we're instructed to move along, Sulu citing that ships and equipment can be replaced. I assume that as we leave, a actual task force will be deployed here to watch this system just in case. Next up, we arrive at the Europani system's second planet. This is a major colony world of 250,000 colonists. It exports several materials and minerals and plenty of grain. When we arrive, we're immediately aware of the lighting effects that really bring out the metallic look of the hull. The fly-in is a slow one, the dark edifice of the planet's silhouette looming against the sky until we reach transporter range. Beaming down, still nobody has told us why we're here. On arrival, we're called by a Federation expedition team in the Finis region, who gets distracted telling us about the flora here before mentioning that Klingon forces have beamed down and captured his colleagues. This planet is a strange one. I can see why the Federation is so keen to study it. There's plenty of rock formations that seem to bristle with magma, except on closer inspection they're revealed to be trees of some kind. Fire-laced trees. Nearby are all sorts of smaller glowing bulbs and mountainous terrain that just suddenly gives way to a spanning lake of still water. It's an incredible biome, but not why we're here. We have a science team to free. Engaging in a search pattern, we eventually locate a Klingon patrol who attacks us upon seeing us. We topple them and free their captive. It looks like the Klingons have split up. There are 5 scientists to find, and each is being held by a different patrol, so we have more scouting to do. We find our way through the foliage and strange burning landscape until all 5 teams are dispatched and the final explorer rescued. We're thanked by their team leader as we beam them out and set a course to depart the system. At some point we'll have to arrange a drop-off for these scientists. Our next destination is K3, a planet with a mining colony that exports borite. Warping into the system, we're contacted by an Andorian who wears shades inside, the mining supervisor. He's being attacked by the Orion Syndicate because he refuses to pay their protection fees. We step in to repel the attackers, driving away the small Orion attack force, but then reinforcements arrive, followed by the mopping up of more far-flung squadrons. There certainly was a large Orion presence in this system, uncomfortably close to Federation territory, so I assume that K3 is not exactly a Federation world, merely an associated planet, but still one that would be under the protection of Starfleet. The UFP maintains several such contracts with external sources. Not every planet in UFP space is a member world, but most have to deal with the Federation. Independent colonies often forego membership even if they were established with their aid for a number of reasons, including the opening up of trade partners on their own terms. K3 may be one such world, but apparently with the addendum that being so close to the UFP heartland, they're afforded a measure of Starfleet's defences. After all our hard work, we are rewarded with a simple good job. Those shades make you look like an idiot. finishing off these patrol missions are the last two introduced in Star Trek Online.
Our recent defense effort at Mars identified some issues in our existing doctrine. Today's simulation will generate tactical data we can use to resolve those issues. We'll be assessing your performance against a randomly selected hostile force. Good luck.
Enemy forces are approaching Mars at high warp. They will be here momentarily. Unfortunately, evacuation efforts here are not complete. Join us in transporting civilians from Mars and delivering them to the evacuation fleet in orbit. We'll conduct evac operations as long as we're able, and protect the transports from attack.
These are the first to have variable difficulty modes against waves of random enemies, and as such, they're simulated wargames that pit us against randomised foes. This first one, Bringers of War, sees us party up with the Romulan vessel the Lasset over Mars. This wargame was in response to the events at which the Terran Empire assaulted Mars in the Other Crisis, the story arc containing the mirror Voyager. Our mission, as described, is simple. Beam up the civilians and convey them to the transport ships to evacuate. The snag is that we need to lower shields to beam them up, so we have to seize our moment or make an opening.
Computer, in simulation. Excellent work. We'll analyze the data from your efforts and use it to revise our defense doctrine for Mars. Thank you for participating in today's simulation. You may return to your regular duties at your convenience. Quinn out.
The second mission is a similar scenario, the Jupiter Gauntlet.
The recent conflict at Jupiter Station brought up a number of tactical concerns. Today's simulation will be one of the first steps toward addressing them. We'll be assessing your performance against a randomly selected hostile force. Simulation begins now.
Prepare for battle! The enemy is approaching at high warp. We will defend this station to our last breath, as warriors born. Kapla! Enemy ships warping in near Projection Station Alpha!
We have multiple hull breaches and our...
Containment breach! Evacuating all personnel!
Hull is buckling. The Picard is dead in space.
This mission again refers to the events of the Other, where Jupiter Station fell not only to that 12th power demigod of a machine, but also to a Terran incursion led by Marshal Janeway. Again, Starfleet regularly engages in exercises and simulations to test various strategies, because it's better than merely theory crafting. Testing scenarios in controlled environments allows military tactics to be tested and a degree of variability and unpredictability thrown in. No plan survives first contact with the enemy, but you could make contingencies and plan for that.
Computer, in simulation. Excellent work. We'll analyze the data from this event and use it to build a new tactical defense protocol for Jupiter Station. Thank you for your participation in the simulation. You may return to your regular duties at your convenience.
With those taken care of, that's another sector cleared and a couple of extra patrols thrown in. This video ended up being a lot shorter than I expected, I won't lie, but also it was an hour and 10 minutes of footage condensed down to this. Skirmishes take a long time, and there is relatively little going on outside of pew-pew in many of these patrols. Still, we're ready to move on through the sector patrols of Star Trek Online as we await further missions. Thanks for watching. I've been Rick, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.